Hello, friends. I hope you all are enjoying your quarantine days. Uh, let's study something. Let's study DI. Today's topic is DI, so we are going to discuss some important questions here, some one or two concepts, and whatever we have discussed in first class of DI, which is DI introduction and tables. So we are going to use all those techniques, all those tools which we have discussed there. So what was the important tool which we have discussed in the last class? So there were so many tools which we have discussed. We have discussed that all the DI is connected to percentages. So we have to be very good at percentages before learning DI, before going to start DI. So whatever tools we have discussed in last class, those tools are going to play an important role in entire DI. So we have discussed in the last session that data can be given in any form. So in the last class, data was given to us in the form of tables in most of the question. So today we are going to discuss if data is given in the form of bar charts or line charts, then how to deal with it. So uh, before starting, what is bar chart and what is line chart? So again, there would be x y axis where we are going to put some lines, and on the line we are going to get some points where the production or something like that is given. And in the bar graphs, what some bars will be given to us. Bar graphs can be of different types. Cumulative bar graph can be the case. Simple bar graphs can be the case. So we are going to discuss that in detail one by one, along with the questions following it. So let's move on to the question number one, or set number one. uh, let's see, just read the set once. Okay, so I hope you have gone through the set. So let's read it together. So this question is direction for question number 1 to 4. We have discussed in the previous class that there would be a head note or heading given in before any data set given to you. So there's a heading directions for question number 1 to 4. Answer these questions on the basis of the information given below. What is the information given below? We are going to discuss. So sales of pens of different companies is given. So different kind of pens or companies, different companies of pens are given. So one is Penoid, other is Pentex, Pento, Penker. So there are four types of companies which are dealing with the pens. So and we have given the sales of these different companies in the subsequent years starting from 2011 till 2016. So 2000, let's just read the data carefully. What does this data mean? In any DI question, we just first we need to focus on the data, what data is talking about. If we get the grip of the data, if we get the uh, data very clearly, if data is very clear in our mind, then getting to the answers will be very easy. So let's just understand the data completely first, then we will move on to questions. So what does this bar graph means, and what kind of bar graph is this? This is cumulative bar graph. What is cumulative bar graph? So bar graphs will be stacked on one another. So if we let's read it for 2011, what is happening. So 2011, the sale of penoids is, the bar graph for penoids is starting from 0 and going till 200. So this the sale of penoids in 2011 is going to be 200,000 tons, because it is mentioned in the right side of the graph that all the sales value which is given are in 1000 units. So in 2011, the sale of penoids is going to be 200,000 ton. And what is 200,000 ton? It is going to be 2 lakhs. So the sale of penoids in 2011 is 2 lakhs. Now let's move on to Pentex. What is the sale of Pentex in 2011? So uh, some of you might say ki, it is going to be 3 lakhs or 300,000, but this is not the case. Pentex, the Pentex square is starting from 200 and going up till 300. So whatever be the difference between those two values, 300 and 200, is going to be the sales of Pentex in that year. So sales of Pentex is going to be 300 minus 200, which is 100. So the sales of Pentex here is 100 in the year 2011, and the sales of Penoids is going to be 200 in the year 2011. Now move on to Pento. What is the sale of Pento in 2011? The bar of or the rectangle of Pento is starting from 300 and going up till 700. So 300 to 700, it is going to be 700 minus 300, final minus initial. So 700 minus 300 will become 400. So what is the sale of Pento in the year 2011? It is going to be 700 minus 300, which is 400,000 units. So 400,000 units of Pento were produced or sold in the year 2011. Let's move on to Panker, last company, which is, so the sale of Panker in 2011 is starting from 700 and going up till 900. So 700 to 900, there is a gap of 200, or we can say 900 minus 700 is going to be 200. So if 900 minus 700 is 200, so we can say the sale of Panker in the year 2011 is going to be 200,000 units, or again 2 lakh units, we can say that. Accordingly, we can figure it out for all the years. Let's say, for example, in 2013 or in 2012, we can take any year. In 2012, the sale of Penoids is going to be 200,000 tons. Then the sale of Pentex is starting from the point where Penoids are ending. So Penoids sale is ending at 200. So Pentex is going to start from that point and going up till the next box. So 200 to, I think it is 500. So 200 to 500 is going to be 300,000 tons or 3 lakh tons. And again, the sale of Pento is going from 500 to 800. So it is again going to be 300,000 tons or 3 lakh rupees. And the sale of Panker is going to be 800 to 1000. So 800 to 1000 will become 200,000. So the sale of Panker is going to be 200,000 tons, or again you can say 2 lakh. So this is the data. We have just got the idea of this graph, what this graph is telling us, or what this graph is trying to explain us. So this is all about data which is given. What is given in the data? Again, let's revise. It is given the sales of pens of different companies, how much they are selling. So Penoid is selling how much units, Pentex is selling how much units, Pento is selling how much unit in different years, starting from 2011 and going up till 2016. So I hope this data is clear, what this data is talking about. So let's move on to, there is some additional restrictions. We have studied in our previous class that there can be some added restrictions or added information given in the data set after the information or graph is given. So here additional information is given, which is the profitability of a company is defined as sales minus expenditure divided by sales into 100%. So whatever be given in the question, we have to take that. We cannot assume by ourselves. For example, if question says the profit percent is equal to SP minus CP upon SP into 100, but we know that the profit percentage is SP minus CP upon CP into 100, but question is mentioning something else. So if question is mentioning something, then we have to take that. We don't have to presume something, or we don't have to take the information from our from our previous studies or previous learning. So here question is mentioning profitability of a company is defined as sales minus expenditure divided by sales into 100%. So this is the additional information which we are going to use in some question. Okay. So by sales, what does it mean? The sales units or the sales in rupees? Obviously, the sales in rupees he must be talking about. So, for example, the sales of Penoids in 2011 is 200,000 ton. But that is the sale. The revenue generated from that sale is unknown because we do not know the price of one pen of Penoid. If for example, if we know that the price of one pen of Penoid is rupees 10, and total we have sold 200,000 units or 2 lakh units, then the revenue or the sales revenue which we got from that sale is going to be 200,000 or 2 lakh into 10. What is 2 lakh into 10 is 20 lakhs. So in that case, we are just got the value of sales revenue. So I hope this is clear कि here we have not given sales revenue, they have only given us sales in units, how many units we have sold in 1000 units. I hope the data is clear to everyone. So let's move on to our question number one. So our question number one says, in any year, the sales of a company as a percentage of the total sales of given four companies is called as the market share of that company. Okay. The value of the highest market share of Penoids in any of the given years is how much percentage? Okay. So question is, first question is giving you some information about the market share of the company. So what is market share of any company? They are telling you. So first, before moving on to the question or solving or everything, first just discuss this statement which is mentioned in the question. In any year, the sales of a company as a percentage of the total sales of the given four companies is called the market share of that company. Let's stick to this term first and just get the hold of this term, what this term is trying to say. So let's take year 2011. In 2011, the sales of Penoids is how much? 200,000 units, or you can say 200, because everything is in 1000 units, so 1000 will get cancelled out in numerator and denominator, so we can take 200 as well. So for example, the sales of Penoids in 2011 is 200. And what is the sales of all the four companies? The bar is starting from 0 and going up till 900. So 900 would be the sum of the sales of all the four companies. So the total sales in 2011 of all the four companies is going to be 900, and the sales of Penoid in 2011 is 200. So the market share of Penoids is going to be the share of Penoids divided by the total share or total market. So total market is 900 and the share of Penoids is 200. So what is the market share of Penoids in 2011? It is going to be 200 divided by 900 into 100 percentage. So 200 upon 900 is going to be 2 by 9, and we know 1 by 9 is 11.11%. We have studied in percentages. So what is 2 by 9? 2 by 9 is going to be 22.22%. So we can say the market share of Penoids in 2011 is going to be 22.22%. Okay. Similarly, if I ask you what is the market share of Pento in 2011, in 2011 the share of Pento is starting from 300 and going up till 700. So 300 to 700. What is the difference? 700 minus 300 is 400. So the share of Pento in total share is going to be 400. And what is the total share? Bar is starting from 0 and going up till 900. So 900 is the summation of or sales of all the four companies. So the share of Pento is going to be 400 divided by 900 into 100%. For percentage, we have to multiply it by 100. We have again studied in percentages. So again 4 upon 9, 1 upon 9 is going to be 11.11%. So 4 upon 9 is going to be 44.44%. So this is the question which is asking ki what is the market share. So I hope you have understood, we have got the idea what is market share and all. So let's start the question. Question is asking about the Penoids in the given year. So let's find out the sales of Penoids in the given year. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, we are going to find out the sales of Penoids or the market share of Penoids in each year. So market share of Penoid in any given year is going to be represented by share of Penoids divided by total market share into 100%. So just we have discussed with the example. Next, now market share of Penoid in each year is given as in 2011. Let's calculate for 2011. We have done it just before also. So in 2011, the graph for Penoid starting from 0 and going up till 200. So the share of Penoids is 200 and total share is 900. So 200 upon 900 into 100 is going to be 22.22%. And how we have calculated this? We know 1 by 9 is 11.11%. So 2 by 9 is anyway going to be 22.22%. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now let's calculate it for 2012 also. In 2011, what is the sale of Penoids? In 2012, Penoid sale is 200 and total sales is 1000. So the sale of Penoids in 2012 is going to be 200 divided by 1000, and for percentage we have to multiply it by 100. So again it is going to be 20%. Similarly we can calculate it for 2013, 14, 15 and 16. In 2013 it is going to be 25%. In 2014 it is going to be 18.18%. So how to calculate this? Again 200 upon 1100 into 100. 1 by 11 is 9.09. So 2 by 11 is going to be 18.18%. Next, in 2015, again 300 upon 900 is 1/3 or 33.33%. In 2016, again 200 upon 1100 into 100% or 2 by 11. 2 by 11, 1 by 11 is 9.09. So 2 by 11 is again going to be 18.18%. So we need to find out the year in which the market share of penoids is highest. Now we know the market share of penoids in each year. So we can easily conclude that the market share of penoids is highest in 2015, which is 33.33%, because it is 18.18% is in 2016, 33.33% in 2015, 18.18% in 2014, and if we move on to the previous slide, in 2013 it was 25, 2012 20, 2011 22.22. So it is highest in 2015, which is 33 1/3%. So option D is going to be our answer. I hope this explanation is clear to everyone. So for market share simply means share of penoids. If we are going to find out the market share of penoids, then formula will be share of penoids divided by total share of all the four companies into 100%. Okay, so let's look at the alternate approach to solve this question. This is the general approach to solve this question, where we have calculated for each year. So but it is not necessary to always calculate it. So let's look at this example. What has been asked in this question was, you have to calculate the share of penoids in the total market share, or we have to get the market share of penoids. So by observation, can we do something? Let's see. In 2011, what we are going to do here? We have discussed this. The market share of penoids is share of penoid divided by total market share into 100%. So this share of penoid divided by total market share is going to change for each year, and into 100% is going to be constant. So this 100% is going to be constant. What is going to change? Share of penoid divided by total market share is going to change. So this fraction, which is share of penoid upon total market share, will decide which year we are getting the highest market share. So for any fraction, if we want to increase, we want to maximize this fraction. What fraction? Share of penoid divided by total market share. We just want to maximize it. So to maximize a fraction, we want numerator to be as large as possible and denominator to be as small as possible. So if we want numerator to be because if numerator is very large, then obviously fraction will increase, and if denominator is decreased, then fraction is again increase. So numerator, the higher the numerator, higher the size of the fraction. Higher the denominator, lower the size of the fraction. Lower the numerator, lower the size of the fraction. Lower the denominator, higher the size of the fraction. So whenever we want to increase the size of fraction, or we want to increase the fraction, or we want to maximize the fraction, then we want numerator to be as big as possible and denominator to be as small as possible. So we want share of penoids to be as much as possible and total market share to be as small as possible. Then only this fraction is going to be highest or maximum. So let's see for 2011. For 2011, so for 2011, the share of penoids is 200. Let's see for how many years it is 200, the same quantity. So for 2011, for 2012, for 2014 and for 2016, it is going to be same, which is 200. So can I say numerator is same in all these years? 2011, 12, 14 and 16. Share of penoid is going to be our numerator, which is same for each year. So numerator is same. If numerator is same and denominator is changing, so numerator is constant, and if we increase the denominator, then fraction is going to be decreased. and numerator is same, and if we decrease the denominator, then the fraction is going to be increased. So we want this fraction to be maximum, and numerator is same in case of 2011, 13, 2011, 2012, 2014 and 2016. In all these years, our numerator is same, which is 200, and our denominator are changing. So we want this to be maximum, so we want denominator to be as small as possible in these years. And in 2011, 12, 14 and 15 and 16, so in these 4 years, denominator is minimum for which year? 2011. So we can say for 2011, 12, 15 and 16, numerator is same 2011, 2012, 2014 and 2016. Numerator is same for these years, but denominator is changing, and denominator is minimum in case of 2011. So if denominator is minimum in case of 2011, then I can say the market share of Panoid is going to be highest in case of 2011. Why? Because numerator is same and denominator is as small as possible, or the minimum possible out of these 4 years. So we can directly say without calculating for 2012, for 2014, 2016, we can reject all these 3 years. 2012, 14, 16 can be rejected without even calculating, and we can say 2011 is going to be higher than that of 2012, 14 and 16. And now we have to calculate only for 2011, 2013 and 2015, and we can easily get the answer. So this is the alternate approach by which we can solve this question, where we need not to calculate for each year. We can just observe and eliminate some of the years directly without even calculating. And we have seen this several times in last sheet also. So I hope this is clear. So what is question number 2? If the profitability of Panker in 2015 is 20% and the selling price of each pen sold by Panker is rupees 10, then what is the expenditure incurred by Panker in that year? So we are talking about 2015 in question number 2. So question number 2 is saying the profitability of Panker is, what is profitability defined? Profitability of a company is defined as difference of sales and expenditure divided by sales into 100%. So the profitability of 2015 is given as 20% and selling price of each Panker is given as rupees 10. What is the expenditure incurred by Panker in that year? So let's move on to 2015 and Panker. So in 2015, the sale of Panker is starting from 700 and going up till 900. So 700 to 900, the difference between these two quantities is going to be 200. So 200,000 units is the sale of Panker in 2015, because whatever sales is given, it is given in 1000 units. So 200,000 units. So sale of Pankers in 2015 is 200,000, which is 2 lakh units. And the selling price of each pen sold by Panker is rupees 10. So what is the sales value or sales revenue generated from this 2 lakh units? This is going to be 10 into 2 lakh, because the selling price of one pen is rupees 10. So the selling price of 2 lakh units of pens is going to be 10 into 2 lakhs, which is 20 lakhs. I hope this is clear. So it is going to be 20 lakhs. Next, what is profitability? Profitability is given as 20%, and profitability is calculated on the base of sales. So what is profitability is 20% of sales. Okay, so profitability is 20%. 20% of what? Sales value. So what is sales value? Sales value here is 20 lakhs. So 20% of 20 lakhs is going to be 4 lakhs. So if my profitability is 4 lakh rupees and my sales revenue or sales value from sales, total value from sales is 20 lakhs. So what is my expenditure? My expenditure going to be the difference between sales revenue or sales value and profitability. So 20 lakhs minus 4 lakhs is going to be my expenditure, which is 16 lakhs rupees. So this is the answer. Just go through this solution once more, or I'll just quickly give the recap of this question. In this question, profitability of Panker was given as 20%, and the selling price of each pan of Panker pen is given as rupees 10. So we need to find the expenditure incurred by Pankar in that year. So the sales revenue of Pankar in 2015 was uh, the sales of Pankar in 2015 was 200,000 units, which is 2 lakh units, and the selling price of each pen is 10 rupees. So the selling price of 2 lakh pens, or the sales revenue generated from the sale of 2 lakh pens, is going to be 10 into 2 lakh, which is 20 lakh rupees. And profitability is given at 20%, and it is mentioned in the question that profitability is going to be calculated on the base of sales revenue. So profitability is going to be 20% of the sales value. So 20% of 20 lakh rupees, which is 4 lakh, is going to be profitability. So expenditure is going to be sales minus profitability, which is 20 lakhs minus 4 lakhs, or 16 lakhs. I hope this is clear to everyone. Let's move on to next question. Okay, so next question is, in 2014, if the expenditure of Penoids, Pentex, Pento and Pankar are in the ratio 2:4:3:5, then which company has got the highest profitability? Assuming all companies made the profits. So if all companies made the profit, means sales is going to be always greater than the expenditure, then obviously we'll be getting the profit. So for which company the profitability is going to be highest? Just think for a second, just take 20-30 seconds to just go through the question and just think about it, what is going to be the answer, or what is going to be the path to solve this question. I hope you all have got the idea, or most of you must have got the idea. So yes, answer is cannot be determined. Why? Because we have all the expenditure ratios for each pen given in 2014, which is 2:4:3:5. But sales values are unknown. We do not know the sales value. And if we do not know the sales value, then profitability cannot be defined, because profitability is the difference between sales revenue and expenditure. We know the sales in units, but we do not know the sales value or the revenue from the sales. We do not know the price of per unit of Pankar, Pentex or Pento or everything. So that's why we cannot answer this question. So the answer for this question is going to be cannot be determined. Again, why cannot be determined? Because we know the expenditure ratios, but and the sales is we do also know, but we know the sales in terms of number of units sold, but we do not know the value of sales or the revenue generated from that sale. So sales values are unknown here. So hence profitability cannot be calculated, because profitability here is difference between sales revenue and expenditure. I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay, let's move on to next question. Just go through the question once. Okay. Question is, for which of the following companies was the average annual percentage change in sales from 2011 to 16 the highest? So we have studied in the last class again in our tools what is average annual percentage change. So first we need to remember that the average annual percentage change is final minus initial divided by initial into 100% divided by number of intervals. Again, just revise it. For example, we want to calculate it for Penoids. What is average annual percentage change for Penoids? So initial value, or the value of Penoids, or the value of sales, how much sale has been done for Penoid in 2011, it is 200,000 units, or you can say 200 units. So for example, 200 is the sales of 200,000 is the sales of uh, Penoids in 2011, and in the final year or the last year the sales of Penoids is going to be again 200,000 units. So final quantity is also 200,000 and initial quantity is also 200,000. So difference between them is going to be 0, and 0 multiplied by anything will become 0 only. Okay, so let's calculate it for each year here. So first let's calculate it for Penoids. So for Penoids in 2011, or the which is the initial year, is 200 units, 200,000 units, and in 2016 it is again 200,000 units. And we have discussed the formula for calculate average annual percentage change or simple average growth rate is our final minus initial divided by initial into 100% divided by number of intervals. So final quantity is 200,000 minus 200,000 divided by 200,000 into 100% divided by 5 is going to be 0%. So for why this is 5, number of intervals here is what is number of intervals. So just go through this once more, that there is a difference between number of intervals and number of years. It is not number of years. If it would have been number of years, then the years would have been 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It would have been 6. But we are asking for intervals, not number of years. So 2011 to 12 is one interval, 12 to 13 is other interval, 13 to 14 is third interval, 14 to 15 is fifth interval, and 15 to 16, sorry, 14 to 15 is fourth interval, and 15 to 16 is last and the fifth interval. I hope it is clear. If number of years are n, then number of intervals is going to be n minus 1. Okay, so here number of years given is 6, so number of intervals would be 5, so that's why it is 5. So for penoids, average annual percentage change is going to be 0%. Let's discuss for Pentex. For Pentex, in 2011 the sales of Pentex is 100,000, and in 2016 it rises to 200. So final quantity is 200, initial is 100. Again we can put it in the formula and get answer as 20%. Next, we can similarly we can calculate it for other companies also. Pento, the sales of pen was 400 and in 2011 as well as in 2016. So again, it is going to be 0%. In Panker, the sales in 2012 11 was 200 and in 2016 was 300. So difference between 300 and 200 is 100 divided by initial is 200 into 100 by 5, which is 10%. So the question here was, for which of the following companies was the average annual percentage change in sales from 2011 to 16 the highest? It is going to be for which company? For Pentex, which is 20%. So option number B is going to be our answer. I hope it is clear to everyone. But do we need to let's move on to the alternate approach again. Do we need to calculate it just like we did here for every company? The answer is no. Why? Again, we can take the help of tool, which is sometimes observation is more than sufficient to answer the question. So by that tool we can answer this question very easily. So again we are going to use this as an alternate approach to solve this question. By observation, can we say we need to check only for Pentex and Panker? There is no need to check for Penoids and Pento. Why? Let's see. Because their difference between their final and initial quantity is 0, or it is same in final year as well as in initial year. Penoid, the sale of Penoids in 2011 is also 200,000 and in 2016 it is also 200,000. So difference is going to be 0, and 0 multiplied by anything, answer has to be 0. So we need not to calculate it for Penoids and Pento also, because Pento the same thing is happening for Pento also. The sale of Pento in 2011 was 400 and in 2016 again it was 400. So difference will again become 0, and our answer is going to be 0% for this also. So we just need to check it for 2, which is Pentex and Panker. I hope this is clear to everyone. So this is our set number 1. So let's move on to set number 2, which is this. Just go through this set for I hope you all have tried your level best and you all have read the data. So let's again read it together. So as to get the deeper understanding of the data first before moving onward to the questions. So again, the head note or the heading is directions for question 5 to 9. Answer these questions on the basis of the information given below. So what is the information given below here? Percentage breakup of expenses. So percentage breakup of expenses of whom? Anand, Bala, Chetan, Damodar and Edward. So there are five people here: Anand, Bala, Chetan and Damodar. And we have given the percentage breakup of their expenses or their expenditure breakup. So their expenses are divided in some things, which is food, tuition fees, transport, clothing and others. So they are spending on these five factors, which is food, tuition fees, transport, clothing and others. So again the data is cumulative bar graph, where Anand's percentage breakup is 15%, and from 15% to 40% it is tuition fees, and from 40% to 60% it is transport, and from 60% to 70% it is clothing, and 70% to 100% is others. For example, if I ask you what percentage of total expenses of Anand is for transport. So transport section starts from a transport rectangle starts from 40% and goes till 60%. So 40 to 60, the gap is 20, or we can say 60 minus 40 is 20. So Anand expenses on transport will become 20% of his total expenses. That is the data which we are reading here. So again the same kind of data is given. So without wasting time, let's move on to the questions. So what is the question given? So let's move on to the first question, which is, if Bala's expenses on clothing are rupees 3700, then how much did he spend on food and tuition fees together? Okay, so Bala's expenses are given. Let's see what Bala's expenses are divided accordingly. So Bala spends 25% on food, and 25 to 35 is 10% on tuition fees, 35 to 50, 15% on transport, 50 to 70, 20% on clothing, and 70 to 100, which is 30% on others. Now question is saying, if Bala's expenses on clothing are rupees 3700, Bala spends rupees 3700 in clothing, then how much did he spend on food and tuition fees together? So let's start solving this question. So we know that Bala's expenses on clothing is how much. From the data we can say Bala's expenses on clothing is 20% of Bala's total expenses. Yes, we can say that. So if 20% of total expenses of Bala is equal to the amount spent on clothing, and which is given in question number 5 to be 3700 rupees. So 20% of Bala's total expense is going to be rupees 3700. Okay, so if Bala's expense, and ask for Bala's expense on food and tuition fees together. So how much did Bala spend on food? On food, Bala spends, how much food is first one? So Bala spends 25% on food, and on tuition fees Bala spends 10%, which is second one. So on tuition fees Bala spends 10% of his total expense. So total amount which Bala spent on food and tuition fees together is going to be the addition of both of them, which is 25% plus 10% is equal to 35% of Bala's total expense. So 35% of Bala's total expense is going to be the amount Bala spent on food and tuition fees together, and it is only asked in the question. So basically what we need to find out in this question is, what is 35% of Bala's total expense. So whatever be the 35% of Bala's total expense, that is going to be Bala's expense on food and tuition fees together. I hope till here is clear. And now what we need to find out, 35% of Bala's total expense, and what is given, 20% of Bala's expense is given us to be 3700. So let's start. So if 10, so there are number of ways to solve this, so let's start solving it. So if 10%, 20% of Bala's expense is 3700, which is given. So 10% of Bala's expense will become half of 3700, and half of 3700 is going to be 1850. Okay. So if 10% is 1850, then what is 5%? It's half, because half of 10% is going to be 5%. So if half of 10% is 5%, and half of 1850 is going to be 925. And if we add all three of them, which is 20% of Bala's expense is 3700, 10% of Bala's expense is 1850 and 5% of Bala's expense is 925. If we add all three of them, what will be getting? 20% of Bala's expense plus 10% of Bala's expense plus 5% of Bala's expense, which is going to be 3700 plus 1850 plus 925, addition of which comes out to be 6475 rupees. So 35% of Bala's total expense is going to be 6475, which is asked in the question. I hope it is clear. What we have done, we have been given with Bala's expense on clothing to be rupees 3700, and according to the bar graph, we can see it from the bar graph that Bala spends 20% of its total expenses on clothing. So 20% of Bala's total expense is going to be rupees 3700. Now we need to find out the Bala's expense on food and tuition fees together. So we know that Bala spent 10% on tuition fees, and on food Bala spends 25%, so its addition is going to be 35%. So we need to find out 35% of Bala's total expense and 20% of Bala's total expenses given, and we can do this in number of ways. This is just a way to solve this question. So we will see alternate approach also to solve this question. So let's see the alternate approach to solve the same question. So there is an alternate approach number 1 to solve this question. So if 20% of Bala's expense was rupees 3700, which is given in the question, so 1%, and we need to find out 35% of Bala's expense. So we can do it by this method also. So 1% of Bala's expense will become 3700 upon 20. So if 1% is 3700 upon 20, then 35% of Bala's expense is going to be 3700 upon 20 into 35, which is again rupees 6475. We can do it by this method also. Or again we can do it by one more alternate approach, which is if 20% of Bala's expense is 3700 rupees, then we can find out the 40% of Bala's expense. What is 40%? Double of 20%. So double of 20% is 40. So double of 3700 is going to be 7400. So that means if 40% is this much, and we know 20% of Bala's expense is 3700. So what is 5% of Bala's expense? If we divide by 4 both sides, so if 20% is divided by 4, it comes out to be 5%. And if 3700 is divided by 4, it comes out to be 925. So if 20% of Bala's expense is 3700 rupees, then 5% of Bala's expense is going to be 925 rupees. I hope it is clear till here. What we have done, we are just doing multiple ways to solve this question. If 20% of something is given, how to find out 35% of the same thing. So there are some multiple approaches. We can do it in any way. So what we need to find out, 35% of Bala's total expense. So we have already calculated 40% and 5%, and the difference of 40% and 5% is going to be 35% of Bala's expense. So 7400 minus 925, answer is going to be rupees 6475. I hope it is clear to all of you. Okay, next question. Next question says, if Anand's expenses on food was rupees 1620, then what was his expenses on the other 4 items together? If again the same kind of question which we have done, question number 5. So if Anand's expenses on food was rupees 1620, what was his expenses on other 4 items together? Other 4 means if food is given, then other 4 is rest of the 4, which is tuition fees, transport, clothing and others. Okay. So let's start solving it. So we know that Anand's total expense on food is 15% of his total expenses. So Anand spends 15% of its total expense on food, and which is given to us to be rupees 1620. So we can say that 15% of Anand's total expense is going to be rupees 1620. Okay. Let's move further. So if 15% of Anand's expense is 1620, so what we need to find out is expenses on other items. If 15% is on food, then what is other? 85%. So we need to find out the 85% of Anand's expense, and there would be multiple ways again to solve this question. So same kind of question just for practice. So if 15% is this much, then what is 1%? 1620 divided by 15. So if 1% is this much, what is 100% of Anand's expense? 1620 divided by 15 into 100, which comes out to be 10,800. Now we need to find out 85% of Anand's expense. 85% of Anand's expense, which is 100% minus 15% of Anand's expense, is going to be 10,800 minus 1620, which comes out to be 9180. Again, there are multiple ways you can solve it. By other way also, we can look for the alternate approach as well. Same, if 15% of Anand's expense is going to be rupees 1620, then 1% of Anand's expense is 1620 divided by 15. So 85% of Anand's expense to be 1620 divided by 15 into 85. The answer is again same, 9180. So we can solve it in multiple ways, whichever way is convenient to us. I hope both of these questions are clear. Both are interrelated to each other. Okay. So let's move on to other question. Next question, which is question number 7. Just read it along with me. If the total expenses of Bala and Chetan are in the ratio 3:5, if the total expenses of Bala and Chetan are in the ratio 3:5, then what is the ratio of their other expenses? Okay, so we have given the ratio of total expenses of Bala and Chetan is to be 3:5. So, and we need to find out their other ratio. So what is the other ratio? How much did Bala spend on others? Bala spent 30% of his total expenditure on others, and Chetan spends 35% of its total expenditure on others. Okay, so first we need to just assume something for total, and the ratio of their total is given to us to be 3:5. So let's start solving the question. Now, let us assume total expenses of Bala and Chetan to be 300k and 500k. We can assume anything. We can assume 3 and 5 also. We can assume 300 and 500. We can assume 3000 and 5000. So, any multiple of this ratio we can assume. So, I have assumed their total expenses of Bala and Chetan to be 300k and 500k. So, if total expenses of Bala and Chetan is given as 300k and 500k, and we need to find out the ratio of their other expenses. So what is Bala's expenditure on others? Bala spends 30% of its total expenses on others. And what is Bala's total expenses? 300k. So 30% of 300k Bala is going to spend on others. And how much did Chetan spend on others? Chetan spends 35% of its total expenses on others. So 35% of 500k is going to be the expenses of Chetan on others. So let's just find out the ratio. So ratio of their other expenses is going to be 30% of 300k, which is the expense made by Bala on others, and 35% of 500k, which is the expense made by Chetan on others. So k to k will get cancelled out, double zeros will get cancelled out. So or we can say if 10% of 300k is 30k, so 30% would be 90k, and similarly we can find out 35% of 500k to be 175k. K to k will get cancelled out, ratio comes out to be 18:35. So A option is going to be our answer in this case. I hope it is clear, the easy one. So what is this question asking? Question is we have given the ratio of total expenses of two person and asked for one of the component of their expenditure. Ratio of one of the component of their expenditure. So we can do it by assuming any value. We could have assumed 300 and 500 as well. We could have assumed 3 and 5 as well. We would have got the same answer. I hope this is clear to everyone. So let's move on to next question. So next one is, if Damodar spends, just read it once with me, along with me. If Damodar spends 15% more on transport than Edward on clothing, then the total expenses of Damodar is what percentage more or less than that of Edward? Okay. So question is asking, if Damodar spends 50% more on transport than Edward on clothing, then the total expenses of Damodar is what percentage more or less than that of Edward? Okay. So how much did Damodar spend on transport? Damodar, now this is Damodar. Damodar is fourth person. Okay. Now this is very critical. So what we will do, we will just look into the line that food, tuition fees, transport is going to be the third one, and we will say that Damodar is going to spend 50, 80, 80 to 50. That is 30% on transport. But it is wrong. Why it is wrong? Because just see in Damodar's bar graph. What it is given, it is only 4 rectangles are given instead of 5. That means Damodar does not spend in one of the component. So let's see Damodar which doesn't spend in which component. So food line is there, tuition fees is not there, transport is there, and clothing is there, and others is there. So Damodar does not spend any penny on tuition fees. So this is very very important. You can get the wrong answer of this question also. So you have to be very very careful while seeing the data. Okay. So here the second rectangle is going to be of transport because tuition fees is not there. Okay. So let's start solving the question. Let us support Damodar and Edward's total expense to be 100D and 100E respectively. We have to assume something. We can assume 100 X or Y also or something else also. But we have assumed Damodar and Edward total expenses to be 100D and 100E respectively. So if Damodar's total expense is 100D and Damodar spends how much on transport? Damodar spends 20% of its total income on transport. So expense of Damodar on transport is going to be 20% of 100D. Okay, so now what is expense of Edward on clothing? Expense of Edward on clothing is going to be 15% of its total expenses, which we have assumed it to be 100D. So expense of Edward on clothing is going to be 15% of 100D. Okay. Uh, let's move further. Now, according to question, what does question says? If Damodar spends 15% more on transport than Edward on clothing, then the total expenses of Damodar is what percentage more or less than that of Edward? So Damodar's expenditure on transport is 15% more than Edward's expenditure on clothing. So we can use multiplying factor here. We can say the amount Damodar spends on transport is going to be 15% more than the amount spent by Edward on clothing, and the fraction equivalent of 15% is 3 by 20. So we can say the amount spent by Damodar on transport is going to be 1 plus 3 by 20 times the amount spent by Edward on clothing. So 20% of 100D, which is the amount spent by Damodar on transport, is going to be 1 plus 3 by 20. What does this 1 plus 3 by 20 represent? Multiplying factor, which we have studied in the percentages. So if something is increased by 15% or 3 by 20, then it is going to be 1 plus 3 by 20 times of the initial. And so initial is 15% of 100D. So from here we can calculate the ratio of D and E, which comes out to be 69 is to 80. So if the ratio of D and E is 69 is to 80, so let us suppose ki total expenditure of D is going to be 69, then the total expenditure of E comes out to be 80. So how much D is less than that of E? So D is 11 less than that of E. So we need to find out how much percentage is, then the total expenses of Damodar is what percentage more or less than that of Edward. So Damodar is 11 less than 80. 11 less than 80. So percentage change is going to be Edward minus Damodar divided by Edward into 100%, and the Edward is 80, Damodar is 69. So it is 80 minus 69 upon 80 into 100%, which comes out to be 13.75% less. So Damodar spends 13.75% less than Edward in this question. Okay. So what we have done, we have just first assumed total expenses of Damodar and Edward to be 100D and 100D, and then we have calculated their expenses on transport and clothing, and then we have applied the rule of multiplying factor, and accordingly we have solved. We have got the ratio of D and D, and we have got the percentage change between D and D that was required in this question. So basic application of, purely the application of percentage, this question. Okay. Hi everyone. Hope you are doing great, utilizing this time in the best possible way. So my suggestions are to use this time to the best possible, in the best possible way you can. So just treat it as a golden opportunity. You are preparing for an exam which is going to be conducted in November, and now you are getting a time. So just use it in the best possible way which is possible. And I hope you all have attended the part 1 of this bar chart and line chart. So this is just the continuation of the first part, which is in that part we have discussed bar charts. So we have discussed two sets. So one question was left in that chart, so we'll be continuing from that question only, question number 9. So we have done till question number 8 in part 1, and now this is part 2, from which we are starting from question number 9. So one question was left in the second set of bar chart, so we'll be starting from that question, which is question number 9. So once again, let me just read the data for you. This is the percentage breakup of expenses. Anand, Bala, Chetan, Damodar and Edward, 4 people were there, and their expenses, percentage of their expenses on food, tuition fees, transport, clothing and others were given. So this was the question which we were doing in part 1. So last question was left. It is, if Anand's expenses under each of the 5 heads is not less than that of Chetan's, then the total expenses of Anand is at least how many times that of Chetan's. So question is asking if Anand's expenses under each of the 5 heads. What are the 5 heads here? Food, tuition fees, transport, clothing and others. So question is saying if Anand is not doing if Anand's expenses under each of the 5 heads is not less than means it could be more than that of Chetan, or it could be equal to that of Chetan. So in food also Anand's expense can be more than or equal to that of Chetan, in tuition fees also, and in transport, clothing and others. All 5 of them, Anand's expense is going to be more than that of Chetan. If this is the condition which is to be satisfied, then the total expenses of Anand is at least how many times that of Chetan. So we need to find out the Anand is how much, minimum how much value we have to take. So Anand's expense is how much times of that of Chetan, if this has to be happen, this condition has to be satisfied. So let's start solving this question. So let us assume Anand's and Chetan's total expense to be A and C. So for example, Anand spending A rupees and Chetan is spending C rupees. And one by one we are going to try for each of the expenses under each of the 5 heads, which is food, tuition fees, transport and so on. So let's discuss food first. What is the expenses of Anand on food and Chetan on food. So Anand's expenditure on food is going to be 15% of Anand's total expenditure. It is given by the graph. We can see Anand spent 15% of his total expenditure on food, and Chetan spends 20% of its total expenditure on food. And what is the condition to be satisfied? Anand's expense has to be greater than or equal to Chetan's expense on food. So Anand's expense is 15% of A should be greater than equal to 20% of C. Or we can say from here the ratio of A by C has to be greater than equal to 4.33 or 1.33. So we can say A should be greater than equal to 1.33 times of C if Anand's expense on food should be greater than that of Chetan's expense on food. I hope it is clear. Similarly, we have to do for other also. So let's try for one more. Let's do it for tuition fees also. If tuition fees, Anand's expenses on tuition fees has to be greater than Chetan's expenses on tuition fees, then what should be that factor? We need to find out. We know that Anand spends 25% of its expenses on tuition fees, and Chetan spends 20% of its expenses on tuition fees, and we want 25% of Anand's expense, which is A, is going greater than equal to 20% of Chetan's expenses, which is C. So again the ratio comes out to be 4 by greater than equal to 4 by 5 or 0.8. So if A by C is greater than equal to 0.8, we can say A should be greater than equal to 0.8. So if Anand's expenditure on fees has to be greater than equal to Chetan's expenditure on fees, then A is greater than equal to 0.8C. Then answer should be greater than equal to 0.8C. But this is not helpful in this case. Why? Because from the earlier food one, we have concluded that Anand's expenditure should be at least 1.33 times of C. Then only Anand's expenses on food is going to be greater than equal to Chetan's expenses on food. So it has to be greater than, answer has to be greater than equal to 1.33. So obviously choice A could not be the answer, and this 0.8 is not going to benefit us in any way, because anything less than 1.33 is not useful now, because we have already concluded we want it to be good, greater. Anand's expenses in each of the heads has to be greater than equal to Chetan's. So we have to satisfy food, so it has to be greater than equal to 1.33, and if something is greater than equal to 1.33, so it is by default greater than equal to 0.8 also. So similarly, we have to do it for transport, clothing, and others. So for transport, the ratio comes out to be zero point 0.5. So A by C should be greater than equal to 0.5, or you can say A should be greater than equal to zero point 0.5. For clothing, the ratio turns out to be 1.5. So A should be greater than equal to 1.5. And for other, the ratio is 1.16. So A by C should be greater than equal to 1.16. So from all of these ratios, we want this ratio to be what could be the maximum possible value of this ratio. That's what we want. So if we want this condition to be satisfied, that Anand's expenses on each of the 5 heads should be greater than Chetan's expenses on each of the 5 heads, then we have to select the maximum possible value out of these ratios. So then only we'll be sure that Anand's expenses on each of the 5 heads is greater than or equal to Chetan's expenses on each of the 5 heads. So which is the highest possible ratio here? 1.16, 1.5, 0.5, 0.8 and 1.33. So highest is 1.5. So can I say my A by C should be greater than equal to 1.5 or A should be greater than equal to 1.5? So at least A should be greater than equal to 1.5 times of C. Then only this will possible. This condition will be satisfied that Anand's expenses on each of the 5 heads is greater than or equal to Chetan's expenses on each of the 5 heads. So answer is B option 1.5. I hope it is clear. What we have to do, we just have to find out that value Anand's expenses how much times of Chetan's expense, so that Anand's expense on each of these 5 heads is going to be greater than or equal to Chetan's expenses. So it should be at least 1.5 times of Chetan, then only this conditions is going to be satisfied. So I hope this is clear. Let's look for alternate approach to solve this question. So by observation, can we do something here also, just like we have done in part 1? By observation, can we see we have to check only for food, clothing and others, need not to check for tuition fees and transport. Why not to check for tuition fees and transport? Why? Just let's look at it once. So on transport, Anand's expenses is 25% of its total expenses, and Chetan's expenses is 20% of its total expenses. So if we want Anand's expenses to be greater than equal to Chetan's expenses on tuition fees, then, and already we know that the component of Anand's expense on tuition fees, the percentage of that component is 25% of total, and Chetan's expenses on tuition fees is only 20% of its total. Even if Anand and Chetan spends equal amount of money, if Anand's and Chetan's expenditure, even if Anand's and Chetan's expenditure is equal, for example, Anand spent 100 rupees on total expenses and Chetan is total expenses is also 100 rupees. Then what is Anand's expenditure on tuition fees? 25, and Chetan's expenditure on tuition fees is going to be only 20%. So Anand's is greater than that of Chetan. So even if they are equal, that means A is equal to 1 into C. That factor is 1. Then also Anand's expense coming out to be more than that of Chetan. And so all our answer is more than 1. So obviously 1 should not be the answer. So we need not to check for this also. Similarly for transport also, the expenses of Anand on transport is how much percent? It is coming out to be, transport is third one. It is 20% of total expenditure of Anand. And for Chetan it is only 10%. So again the percentage expenditure of Anand on transport is greater than the percentage expenditure of Chetan on transport. So again, even if Anand and Chetan's total expenses are equal, or A is equal to 1 times of C, then also Anand's expenditure is on transport is going to be more than that of Chetan's expenditure on transport. So that's why we need not to check for those ratios where percentage component of Anand's expense is going to be greater than percentage component of Chetan's expense. In that case we need not to check. So then obviously we can ignore tuition fees and transport and check for all three of them to get our answer. I hope this is clear to all of you. Okay, so that was bar charts. So let's start solving line charts. So yesterday we have studied bar chart. So today we are going to study line chart. Just go through this data once, then I'll explain the data. Just take 15-20 seconds to read the data. Okay, I hope you all have read the data. So let's once again read the data and just understand what is line chart. So we have studied in first class of DI that data can be represented in various forms. In first class, we have studied that data can be represented in the form of tables. In part 1 of this class, we have studied data can be represented in the form of bar chart, and now data is represented here in the form of line chart or line graph. So what is happening here? We have just given the line and some points are also mentioned here. So let's just try to read this data, what this data is saying. So the line graph shows the sales of different brands of toilet soap for the period 2012 to 2016. So this line graph shows the sales of different brands. Which brands are available? Beers, Gux, Sundrika, Senthol and Hexona. So there are 5 brands which given sales of 5 brands are given for the period of 2012 to 2016 in thousands of units. It is mentioned here, sales of toilet soaps in thousands of units is given. So how to read this data? Let's do it for one of these soap. So let's do it for Sundrika. So which one is Sundrika? The third one, circle one. So how much was the sale for Sundrika in 2012? It was 500 because it is starting from 500. And in 2013, the sale of Sundrika decrease and it is less than 500. We do not know how much, but it is slightly less than. So we can take 450, we can take 400. It will not going to change our answers, so it will not impact our answers. Whenever data, this kind of data is given where we are not sure, so we can take any value. We can take 450, we can take 449, but we will take the convenient value. So instead of taking 450, we will take 400 because our calculation will be easy. Or we can take 300 depending upon calculation. It will not impact the question or the answers of the question which will come. So need not to worry about this key, how much we have to take for Sundrika in case of 2013. So you can take 300, 400, but obviously this is more than half, so you have to take more than 250. So you can take 300, 400, 450, 350, whatever you want. It will not change or hamper or disturb our answers. Okay. So the sale of Sundrika in 2013 is less than 500. You can take anything. And in 2014, it increases and goes to again 500, and in 2015 it again increasing and goes to middle of 500 and 1000 is going to be 750, and in 2016 it further increased to 1250. Middle of 1000 and 1500 is going to be 1250. So like that the sale of 5 toilet soaps is given in this data. I hope this data is clear to all of you. So let's quickly move on to the questions. So question number 10, or the first question of this set, is during the period 2012 to 2016, which brand of toilet soap showed the largest percentage increase in sales? So during the period 2012 to 2016, which brand of toilet soap showed the largest percentage increase in sales? So options are Beers, Sundrika, Senthol, Hexona. First, before starting this question, whenever we read a question in DI, just read it along with the options. Why to read it along with the option? Because question is asking from 2012 to 2016 which brands have shown the largest percentage increase. If you blindly start solving it and you start solving it for all the 5 toilet soaps, but in the options are only 4, so you need not to calculate for one of them. So which is not in the option? Gux is not in the option, so you need not to check for Gux. Okay, so we have to check for 4 of the toilet soaps, 4 out of the 5, which is Beers, Sundrika, Synthol and Hexona, which is the largest percentage change. So let's start solving it. So what is percentage change? Percentage change is going to be final minus initial divided by initial into 100%. So which is final year here? 2016, and initial year is 2012. So let's start doing it from beers. So what was the sale of beers in 2012? It is 500. So the sales of beers is going to be 500 in 2012, and in 2016 it increased from 500 to 1500. So 500 to 1500, there is a change of 1000, or we can say percentage change is going to be 1500 minus 500, which is 1000, divided by 500 into 100%, which comes out to be 200%. We all know percentage change is final minus initial divided by initial into 100%. Similarly, we have to do for rest of the three soaps also, which is Sundrika, Synthol and Hexona. So the results are here. The sales of Sundrika in 2012 was 500, and in 2000 it increased to 1250. So 1250 minus 500 divided by 500 into 100% comes out to be 150%. Similarly for Synthol and Hexona we have calculated, and we want the largest percentage change. So the answers are 200%, 150%, 400% and 200%. So largest percentage change is for which soap? It is for Synthol, which is 400%. So we can say our answer is going to be 400%, which is Synthol. I hope this is very easy question where we just have to calculate the percentage increase, and percentage increase we all know, change or final minus initial divide by initial into 100%. So from 2012 to 2016 we need to calculate the percentage change. So initial year here is 2012 and final year here is 2016. Okay, so let's see the alternate approach to solve this question. Can we do this question again by using observation tool? So now you are seeing how much we are using this observation tool. Sometimes observation is necessary or is more than sufficient to answer the question. So the tools which we have studied in first class are going to play the important role in DI. So just see, can we do it just by observing the data? Let's try to do it just by observing the data. So without calculating anything, can we do it orally? Let's try it. So we have done calculations also, just try to solve this orally. So for which of the soap we need not to calculate? For Gugs we need not to calculate, we have already, because it is not there in the option. So let's start from beers. So the sale of beers in 2012 is 500 units. Okay, and from 2012 to 2016 it increased from 500 to 1500. So 500 to 1500, let's keep it here, need not to calculate. So for which of the let's check it for Sundrika. Okay, B option. So the sale of Sundrika in 2012 was 500 again, and in 2016 it becomes 1250. So you need not to calculate what is happening here. The sale of beers was 500 and the Sundrika was also 500 in 2012, and from 2012 to 2016 the sales of beers increased to 1500 and the sales of Sundrika only increased to 1250. So base is same for both beers and Sundrika, and final quantity is less in case of Sundrika. So if change is less in Sundrika, then percentage change is also going to be less in case of Sundrika, because base is same for both. And percentage change is change upon base or initial quantity. Initial is same for beers and Sundrika both, which is 500, and change or final minus initial is changing for both of them, and for which is greater? For beers it is greater. So obviously percentage change for beers is going to be more than that of Sundrika. You need not to calculate. Okay, so Sundrika is out of the picture now. Okay, so we have beers is still there. So let's compare beers and Synthol or beers and Hexona. So let's compare beers and Synthol first. So the sales of Synthol in 2012 is less than 500. The sales of Synthol in 2012 is less than 500. We do not know, or we need not to check also. So it may be 400 or 450, but it is less than 500, that we know. And the sales of Synthol, from less than 500 it becomes 1500 in 2016, and the sales of beers from 500 becomes 1500. When we compared beers with Sundrika, initial was same and final was changing. Now it is vice versa. When we compare beers with Synthol, final is same but initial is changing. So the initial or the sales of beers in 2012 is 500 and the sales of Synthol in 2012 is going to be 300. So for whom it is less, for Synthol it is 9 and for beers it is more. So 500 to 1500 there is a change of 1000 and from 300 to 1500 there is a change of more than 1000, obviously more than 1000. So if change is more and denominator is also decreasing in case of Synthol, initial is decreasing and numerator denominator is decreasing and numerator is increasing. So obviously the sale of Synthols is going to be higher that of beers, need not to check. So again need not to check. So beers is out of the picture now. Why? Because final or 2016 sales is same, but in 2012 the sale of Synthol is less than that of beers. So Synthols increase from 300 to 1500 and beers increase from 500 to 1500. So from 300 to 1500 obviously the change is higher than that of 500 to 1500. I hope it is clear to all of you. We need not to check. Now between Synthol and Hexona now we have to check option C and option D, which is more. So let's check it for Hexona also. The sales of Hexona in 2012 is between 500 and 1000. Let's take it 750 and it increased from 750 to 2250. So 750 to 2250 is going to be the change of how much? It is going to be the change of 1500 and 1500 is double of 750. So can I say it is just become 200% or double means 200%? There is an increase of 200%. It has increased doubled. So if it was 750, it increased 1500 more and becomes 2250. So 1500 on the base of 750 is going to be 200% or just the double. But in case of Synthol, our denominator, our initial was 300 and final was 500. So there is a change of more than 1000. More than 1000, how much there was in 1200 change? 1200 on the base of 300. If we can take, if we will take Synthol to be 500 also, then all less than 500. If we would have taken it 500 also, then also it would have been the change of 200%. But it is less than 500. We can see from the chart. So we can take it 300. We can take it 400. So I have taken it 300 just for the sake of easy calculation. You can take it 350 also. You can take it 400 as well. That's not an issue. I hope what I am trying to say, you have just got the idea of what I am trying to explain it to you. That you need not to calculate. You can do it orally also. Okay. So that was alternate approach to solve this question. Let's move on to next question, which is question number 11. So what does this question says? In 2016, the sales of Sundrika were how much less than that of Hexona? Okay. So in 2016, we have to compare the sales of Hexona and Sundrika. So sales of Sundrika were how much less than that of Hexona? So in 2016, the sales of Sundrika was 1250. It is in middle of 1000 and 1500, and the sales of Hexona was 2250. It is in middle of 2000 and 2500. So we have assumed it to be 2250 approximately. So we want percentage change, and again percentage change means we want sales of Sundrika was how much percentage less than. So sales of Hexona minus sales of Sundrika divided by sales of Sundrika into 100%, because we have to compare it with Sundrika. So Sundrika, sales of Sundrika will come in the denominator that we have studied in percentage. Denominator is to be filled by that quantity from which we are comparing. So we are comparing the change with respect to Sundrika. So Sundrika will come in the denominator. So 1000 upon 2250 into 100%. So we can get it 4 by 9. 1 by 9 is 11.11% and 4 by 9 is going to be 44.44%. So answer is D option. The easy one, easy question was D, as we just have to check Sundarika is what percentage less than that of Exo. Okay, let's move on to next question. Question number 12. Just read the question once. In 2017, the sales of Synthol increased by 40%. In 2017, the sales of Synthol increased by 40%. With respect to what? Obviously the previous year, which is 2016. So data is given till 2016. 2017, the hypothetical situation is given that in 2017 it is going to be increased by 40% obviously as compared to the previous year. So whenever it is not mentioned, then we have to take it from the previous year. So in 2017 the sales of Synthol increased by 40% as compared to previous year, which is 2016. If in 2017 the sales of Sundrika and Synthol were equal, okay, then what was the percentage increase in the sales of Sundrika in 2017 over that of the previous year? Okay, we need to calculate the percentage change in case of Sundrika. If Sundrika and Synthol, the sales are same in 2017. So first we need to find out the sales of Synthol in 2017. Whatever be the sales of Synthol in 2017, it is going to be same for Sundrika as well. And we need to check the percentage change of Sundrika from 2016 to 2017. So I hope question is clear. Let's start solving it. The sales of Synthol in 2016 is given to us, which is 1500. From the graph we can see the sales of Synthol in 2016 is 1500, and according to the question in 2017 the sales of Synthol increased by 40%. And if something is increased by 40%, what is the percentage fraction equivalent of 40%? It is 2 by 5, because 20% is 1 by 5, so 40% is going to be 2 by 5. And if sales of Synthol is increased by 40%, so it is increased by 2 by 5. If something is increased by 2 by 5, it becomes 1 plus 2 by 5 times. We have studied multiplying factor in percentages. So the sales of Synthol in 2017 is going to be 1 plus 2 by 5 times the sales of Synthol in 2016, which is 1500. So 1 plus 2 by 5 is 7 by 5. So the sales of Synthol in 2017 is 7 by 5 times of 1500, which is 2100. And it is mentioned in the question, whatever be the sales of Synthol in 2017, it is the same for Sundrika as well. So can I say this 2100 is going to be the sales of Sundrika in 2017 also? Yes, we can say this. I hope till here it is clear. So the sales of Sundrika and Synthol is same in 2017. So it is going to be 2100 for both of them. Okay, now we know the sales of Sundrika is 2100 in 2017, and from the line chart we can see the sales of Sundrika in 2016 is between 1000 and 1500. So we have assumed it to be 1250. We could have assumed it as 1200 also. That's not an issue. So we can assume any number. Answer will not change that. So but it is exactly in middle of it, so we have assumed it as 1250, because it is from the chart we can see it is 1250 only. So here there is no ambiguity. So we have discussed in case of Synthol, there was an ambiguity in case of Synthol whether it is 450, 400, but here it is in the middle, so we have to take this as 1250. Okay, so in 2016 the sales of Sundrika is 1250, and from 1250 in 2017 it becomes 2100. So what is the percentage change? Percentage increase in Sundrika is final minus initial divided by initial into 100, which is 2100 minus 1250 divided by 1250 into 100%, which comes out to be 850 divided by 1250 into 100, or 17 by 25 into 100%, which is 68%. So calculations are also very easy. You need not to calculate. Very easy numbers were given. So I hope it is clear. The question was the sales of Synthol and Sundrika both are same in 2017, and sales of both are given in 2016, and for one of them increase is given, and we have to find out how much the other have increased from 2016 to 2017. I hope it is clear. So let's look for the alternate approach to solve this question. Can we solve this question by some other approach also? Yes, we can do it. So just try to solve this question by one more approach. So which is this approach? Just see the data. Okay. So the sales of Sundrika is given in 2016. It is 1250. From the chart we can see this. The sales of Synthol in 2016 is also known, which is 1500, and sales of Synthol from 2016 to 2017 it is increased by 40%, and 40% of 1500 is 10% of 1500 is 150. So 40% is 150 into 4, which is 600. So if sales of Synthol is increased by 600, it becomes 1500. Increase of 600 from 1500, it will come out to be 2100. And we know the sales of both are same in 2017. So whatever be the sales of Synthol in 2017, the same will hold true for Sundrika as well. So the sales of Sundrika is also 2100 in 2017. Now, what we need to find out, how much percentage the sales of Sundrika increased from 2016 to 2017. In 2016 it was 1250, and 2017 it becomes 2100. So can I do it in can I break this in two parts? Can we say this, the sales of Sundrika first, from 1250 it becomes 1500, and from 1500 it becomes 2100? Can we do it like this also? Yes, we can do this. So we have to reach from 1250 to 2100 anyhow. So we can go it in two parts also. So let's try doing this. So 1250 to 1500, how much percentage change is there? 10% of 1250 is 125. So 20% is going to be double, which is 250. And from 1250 to 1500, it is a change of 250 only. So can I say from 1250 to 1500, it is increased 20%. So the sales of Sundrika first increased 20% and it becomes 1500, and from 1500 to 2100 it has further increased 40%. So can I say there are two successive increases of 20% and 40% for Sundrika here? One is the sale of Sundrika first increased by 20%, followed by the increment of 40%. And when there is increase, double increase, then we can say there is a case of successive increase. Increase on increase is called as successive increase. So can I say there are two successive increases of 20% and 40%? So we can use the formula for successive percentage change, which is 20 plus 40 plus 20 into 40 divided by 100, which comes out to be 68%. So we can do it by successive percentage change also. What we have done, the sales of Sundrika in 2016 is known, the sales of Synthol in 2016 is known, and we know that the sales of Synthol increased by 40% in 2017 as compared to 2016. So it becomes 2100. And the sales of Synthol and Sundrika both are same in 2017. So the sales of both is going to be 2100. So how much percent the sales of Sundrika increased from 2016 to 2017? So we have done it in parts. First, the sales of Sundrika from 1250 it becomes 1500. That is a change of 20%. And from 1500 to it becomes 2100, which is the increment of 40%. So there are two successive increases of 20% and 40%. So answer is going to be 20 plus 40 plus 20 into 40 divided by 100, which comes out to be 68%. I hope it is clear to all of you, both of the approach. Okay, so let's move on to next question, which is question number 13. Let's read this question once. In 2016, the sales of given brands of toilet soap was 36% of the sales of all the toilet soaps in India. What is the percentage share of Rexona in the sales of all the toilet soaps in India during 2016? Okay. So in 2016, the sales of given brands of toilet soap was 36% of the sales of all the toilet soaps in India. What does this mean? What does this statement mean? First, try to decode this statement. So this statement says in 2016, whatever be the sales of these five brands. So in India, they are just look at by example. In India, it is not necessary that only these five soaps were produced. There may be some other soaps also. So it is nowhere mentioned in the question that in India only these five brands are producing toilet soaps or manufacturing toilet soap. So there could be other brands also. So what is the composition, or what is the market share, or what is the share of all these five soaps in total market share of India? Is 36% in 2016 it is given. So if total 100 soaps were produced, 36 were produced from these five brands. So if total is 100%, then 36% is produced from these five brands. or manufactured from these 5 brands. I hope it is clear to all of you that in 2016 the sales of given brands of toilet soap was 36% of the sales of all the toilet soaps in India. So what is the percentage share of Hexona in the sales of all the toilet soaps? We need to find out. Okay, let's see. Let's try to solve this. So first we need to find out the total sales of the given soaps in 2016, and the total sales of the given soaps in 2016 is how much? The sale of Lux is 2250, then 2250, 1500, and 1250, which comes out to be 9000. So this is the total sale of all the given 5 soaps in 2016, which comes out to be 9000. And we know this is 36%, this 9000 or the total sale of all these soaps is 36% of total soap produced in the country or in the India. So this 9000 is going to be 36% of total sales in India. Okay, so if 9000 is 36% of total sales in India, what is the percentage share of Hexona in total sales of India? So okay, so how much Hexona is produced? Hexona is triangle, so it is between 2000 and 2500, so it is 2250. The sales of Hexona is 2250. So if 9000 is 36% of total sales in India, then what question is, what is 2250 as compared to total sales in India? So we know that if we divide 9000 by 4, we will be getting 2250. So can we divide both sides by 4? Yes, we can divide both sides by 4. So by dividing both sides by 4, what will be getting? 225, 9000 divided by 4 is 2250, and 36 divided by 4 is 9%. So we can say 2250 is equal to 9% of total sales in India. And what is the sales of Hexona in 2016? It is 2250. So can we say 9% of the total sales in India is going to be the sales of Hexona, and which is asked in the question. So need not to calculate it like this. 36% of total sales is 9000. So what is 1%? What is 1%, or like that? So we need not to do this like that. Or if 9000 is 36%, what is 1 or what is 2250? So we can do it directly also by observation that if we divide 9000 by 4, it comes out to be 2250, which is actually the sales of Hexona in 2016. So we just need to find out what is 2250 as compared to total sales in India. I hope it is clear. What we have done, we have just sum up the total sales of all the given soaps, which comes out to be 9000, and according to question that 9000 is 36% of total sales of soaps in India. So if 9000 is 36%, then what is 2250? It is 9%. Dividing both sides by 4, we will be getting the answer. And the sales of Hexona in 2016 is 2250, so it is 9% of total sales in India. Okay, I hope it is clear to everyone. Let's move on to next question. Let's just see the extra question, one extra question, the similar type of question, whatever mentioned here. I have just changed the data in this question. So just let's read this question also. So this is the extra question. This is not in your handout. So what does this question says? In 2015, the sales of given brands of soap was 36% of the sales of all the toilet soaps in India. What is the percentage share of beers in the total sales in India? In the previous question, in 2016 it was given. Now in 2015, the sales of given brands of soap was 36% of sales of all the toilet soaps in India. What is the percentage share of beers in the total sales in India? We need to find out. We can do it by previous method also, that if we can calculate the totals, and then if 36% of total sales in India is going to be whatever the total comes, then again we can do it for beers and find out the answer. But we are going to do this question by some other method. That's why I have taken this as a extra question. So let's see, can we do it directly? So in 2015, we need to find out the share of beers in total sales in India. That is our task. So what is the share of beers in 2015? Can I see it is exactly in the middle? So where is beers? Beers is exactly in the middle. How can we say that it is exactly in the middle? Because if you see the graph, in 2015, the sales of Beers is exactly in middle, and two soap sales were just above it and two were just below it. So it was in the middle. So can I say the middle value, or the middle value is also the mean value in case of AP, and this is AP. These numbers are in AP, these are increasing in the same proportion, so common difference is there. So therefore the sales of beers is going to be the mean value or the average of all the values. We can say this: the sales of beers is going to be the middle value or mean value or the average value. All of them are same. Whatever be the mean, that would be the average, that would be the middle value. So middle value is the sales of beers, which is asked. So indirectly they are asking us the average of all the values. So if the sales of all the values, we have assumed it to be 100%. So if the sales of all the values is 100%, so what is the sum of the sales of all the 5 brands is going to be 100%. So what is the average? Average is sum divided by number of observations. So how many types of soaps are there? 5. So average of all these 5 soaps in 2015 is going to be 100% divided by 5, which comes out to be 20%. And if average is 20%, that is the mean value or the average sale of all these 5 soaps in 2015. So if it is the average value, then it is going to be the middle one, and the middle one is beers. So can I say this is for beers? This is 20% is going to be the sales of beers in 2015. Yes, we can say that. Why? Because it is in the middle, so it is going to be the average value, and average we have find out it is 20%. So the sales of beers in 2015 is 20% of all these 5 brands, the sales of all these 5 brands. And how much is the sales of all these 5 brands? This is 36% of sales of all toilet soaps in India. So can I say the sales of beers is going to be 20% of 36% of all the toilet soaps in India? Because 20% of the share of all these, and the share of all these is going to be 36% of all the toilet soaps in India. So 20% of 36%. What is 10% of 36%? It is 3.6. So what is 20% of 36%? It is going to be double of 3.6, which is 7.2%. So directly we can conclude the answer if it is in the middle. But in the previous question, it was not in the middle. So we have to calculate it by different method. I hope this question is clear to everyone. Why we have done this by average method? Because it is exactly in the middle. So middle value is mean value or the average value. And if sum of all 5 is 100%, then the average is 100% divided by 5, because average is sum divided by number of observations. So 20% of all these 5 soaps is going to be the sales of beers. So 20% of 36% of total sales in India is going to be the sales of beers in 2015. So 10% of 36% is 3.6. So 20% is going to be 7.2% of total soaps, sales of total soaps in India. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay. So let's move on to next question, next data set. So just read it once. Take 10 to 20 seconds to read this, go through the data set very carefully. Okay, I hope you all have read the data. So just read it once again along with me. So directions for question number 14 to 17. Answer these questions on the basis of the information given below. What is the information given below? This is the profit percentage of two companies X and Y across 5 years. So which are the 5 years? 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, and profit percentages of two companies X and Y is given. For example, the for company X, let's study the graph for company X. For company X, the profit percentage in 2012 was how much? It is 10%, and in 2013 it is 12%, 2014 15%, 2015 it is 13%, 2016 it is 18%. And for company Y, it is 17%. Profit percentage is 17% in 2012, 15% in 2013, 13% in 2014, and 14% in 2015, and 11% in 2016. This is what profit percentage of two companies X and Y across 5 years, 2012 to 2016. I hope the data is clear to everyone. And what is the extra information given? Additional information is profit percentage is income minus expenditure divided by expenditure into 100%. So profit is calculated on the base of expenditure here. I hope this data is clear. Let's quickly move on to the questions following this. So question number 14 is, if the income of company X in 2014 was rupees 368 crores. So the income of company X in 2014 was rupees 368 crores. Then what was its expenditure that year? Okay. So income is given in 2014. How much it is? 368 crores. We need to find out the expenditure in that year. And what was the profit percentage of the company X in 2014? It is given us to be 15%. And we have seen by the additional information, profit percentage is calculated on the base of expenditure with respect to expenditure. Okay, let's start solving this question. So it is given that income in 2014 is 368 crores, and from the line chart we can see the profit percentage of company X in 2014 is 15%. And from the additional information, profit percentage is income minus expenditure, which is profit divided by expenditure into 100%. So profit percentage is calculated on the base of expenditure. So can I say my expenditure is increased by 15%? Because profit percentage is 15% of expenditure. So my expenditure is increased by 15%, then it becomes my income. So my income is 15% more than that of my expenditure. I can say this because profit is 15% of expenditure. So my income is 15% more than that of my expenditure. And what is 50 fraction equivalent of 15%? It is 3 by 20. We have discussed in percentage. So can I say my income is equal to 1 plus 3 by 20 times of my expenditure in 2014 by multiplying factor, which we have discussed in percentage. So income in 2014 is going to be 15% more than that of expenditure in 2014, and 15%, the fraction equivalent is 3 by 20. So my income in 2014 is going to be 1 plus 3 by 20 times my expenditure in 2014. And what is 1 plus 3 by 20? It is going to be 23 by 20. So by cross multiplying, we are getting expenditure in 2014 comes out to be 368 into 20 divided by 23. And 23 16s are 368. So 360 into 20 is going to 16 into 20 is going to be 320 crores. So this is my expenditure in 2014. This is kind of a profit loss question directly. This was easy one. Income is given, we need to calculate the expenditure, and profit percentage is 15%. So income is going to be 15% more than that of expenditure. So directly the use of multiplying factor. So income is 1 plus 3 by 20 times of expenditure, which is 368 given. So 368 is 23 by 20 times of expenditure. Expenditure comes out to be 320 crores, which is option C. So answer is option C here. Let's quickly move on to the alternate approach to solve this question. Can we solve this question by some other approach? Yes, we can do it by alternate approach also. There is one more approach to solve this question. So what is this approach? In the question it is given that income of company X in 2014 is 368 crores. Instead of taking 368 crores, we can take it to be some other value, or we can assume expenditure to be something. By both methods we can do this question. So we need to find out the expenditure, and income is given 368. Sorry, income is given 368. We need to find out the expenditure. So instead of taking expenditure to be X or finding out the expenditure by the traditional method, let's do it by some other method. Let us assume expenditure to be something, and profit percentage we know it is 15% in 2015 in 2014. Sorry. So whatever we have assumed expenditure, it is going to be increased by 15%, and this become income. So if expenditure is this, income is this, and if income is this, what would be the expenditure? We can do it by contradiction method also. Let's try to just solve this question by contradiction method. So let's write, if in, let's suppose expenditure in 2014 to be 100. So we have assumed the expenditure in 2014 to be 100, and if expenditure in 2014 is 100, profit percentage is 15%. So my income is going to be 15% more than that of 100. So what is 15% of 100? It is 15. So my income is going to be 115. Okay, so 15 more than 100, so it is going to be 115. So if my income is 115 when my expenditure is 100, and we need to calculate the income if expenditure is 368 crore, but actual income is 368 crores. So therefore by unitary method we can solve this. That is, if income is 115, expenditure is 100. If income is 368 crore, expenditure is X, which is we need to find out. So by cross multiplying we can get the answer easily, which is 320. I hope this method is also clear to all of you. Okay, so what we have done, we have assumed expenditure. We have assumed expenditure to be 100, profit percentage is 15%. So my income is going to be 15% more than that of my expenditure. So it is going to be 115 if expenditure is 100. So if income was 115, expenditure was 100. So what would be expenditure if income is 368? So by unitary method cross multiplying, we'll be getting the answer as 320 crores, which is option C. I hope this method is also clear to everyone. So, which is question number 16. So what does this question says? If the ratio of the incomes of X and Y in 2015 are 2:3, then what is the approximate ratio of their expenses that year? Okay. So ratio of incomes of company X and Y in 2015 are 2:3. So first we have to assume incomes. Okay, so if the ratio is 2:3, we can assume their income to be anything 200, 300, 2k, 3k, 200k, 300k. So I have assumed their income to be 200k and 300k. Okay, and what is the ratio of their expenses? What is the percentage profit we need to first calculate? What is the profit percent of X in 2015? It is 13%. So can I say income of X is 13% more than that of expenditure of X in 2015? Yes. So income of X is 113 by 100, 100 plus, or 1 plus 13 by 100 is going to be 113 divided by 100 times of expenditures of X. So income of X is going to be 113 by 100 times of expenditure of X. Income of X, we have assumed it to be 200k. So expenditure of X is going to be 200k into 100 divided by 13. Similarly, we can do it for Y company also. Income we have assumed it to be, income of Y we have assumed it 300k, and profit percentage of company Y is 14%. So can I say income of company Y is 14% more than that of expenditure? So income of company Y in 2015 is 14% more than that of expenditure. So income of Y is 114 by 100 times of expenditure of Y. So expenditure of Y comes out to be 300k into 100 divided by 114, just by doing the calculation. We have not calculated anything, we have just put it the values. So now what we have to find out, the ratio of the expenditure of X and expenditure of Y. Everything will get cancelled out in the ratio. So what we are getting, 2 by 3 into 114 divided by 113. Now how to calculate this ratio? So this is going to be 114 and 113 is going to be almost same. It is slightly more than 1 because numerator is slightly more than denominator. So we can say 114 upon 113 is slightly more than 1. So this answer is going to be approximately 2 by 3 only, which is 0.66, or slightly more than 0.66. Okay, so now check for option, which option is close to 0.66. So first option is 2 by 5, which is 0.4. Second option 5 by 3, 1.66. Third option 11 by 9, which is 0.578. Third option 17 by 25, which is 0.68. So answer is going to be slightly more than 0.66, which is 0.68. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So how to check the option? 1 by 5 is 20%, so 2 by 5 is going to be 40%, which is 0.4. 1 by 3 is 0.33, so 5 by 3 is going to be 1.66. And 11 by 19 is, 1 by 19 is how much? 5.25. So 11 by 19 is going to be 5.25%. So it is going to be 57.8% or 0.578. Okay, similarly we have calculated for 17 by 25 into 100. If you do it, 25 4s are 100, 17 4s are 68. So it is 0.68. So calculations are easy. Okay, but we have to assume 114 by 113 is slightly more than 1. So slightly more than 1, so it is going to be close to 2 by 3 only. So just more than 2 by 3, slightly more than 2 by 3. So answer is option D. I hope this is clear to everyone. What we have done, we have just find out we have given the ratio of income, we have find out the ratio of expenditure if profits are given. I hope this is clear to everyone.